So we will be opening our open discussion with our speakers today. Thank you so much for everyone who have submitted their questions. I see a lot of people who have already filled up our Q&A tab. So we'll just go through some. So first here we have from Melissa. Hi, Melissa. Her question is, in the context of the Philippines, people are bothered by drug users because of the belief that they have the potential to do crimes, that drugs will make them do crime. What is the best way to approach this myth? We welcome any speaker to start.
Do I start?
Yes, go ahead, Doc Mike.
Cool. Maybe there's something NoBox needs to do as well. No? But I used to have collections of stories. No? The things attributed to the crimes attributed to people who were supposedly on drugs. No? When you really think about it, no, if they were really on shabu, they would not have been able to do the things that were blamed on them. No? Shabu gives you a high. You can't even drive. You can't do any of the things which they claim to have done. No? And this is part of the mythology around the addict. No? That we blame the crimes on the addict, the so-called addict. No? And again, it's a lack of understanding of the physiology of psychoactives. Okay? But it is very convenient to think about it. Now, do drug dependents commit crimes? Of course they do. But so do people who are not high on drugs. No? And when you look at the commonalities in here, you have to go back into things like poverty. And maybe it's the poverty that we don't want to confront. That's the other thing. The war on drugs obscures the problems of poverty and of deprivation that we have today. It's too convenient to blame it on addiction.
Here, here. Doc Mike hit it out of the park.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Here we have one from Lee. Hi, Lee. So his question is, how do we prevent addiction or dependence? We're always concerned about the harms of addiction and dependence, so we tell our kids to not even try drugs. So what are your thoughts on this? Maybe you can start with Dr. Carl Hart this time.
Okay, well, I'm a parent, and so of course I worry about those kind of things. But the first thing I do is parent. You have to parent. It's not any magic bullet like people say, oh, addiction can affect anyone. You know, oftentimes that's like a kind of nonsense. If you make sure that folks are taken care of psychologically, they're psychologically healthy, your society takes care of people, you decrease the likelihood that people will experience addiction. But when you have poverty, underemployment, unemployment, poor education, all of these sorts of things, you increase the likelihood that people might experience addiction. And addiction isn't the worst thing. The worst thing is that you lose someone. Someone dies from taking a tainted drug. And so people should really be wanting to make sure they understand, how do we make sure our kids don't get tainted drugs? That's far more important. And then, you know, there are things that you can do as a society. You can make sure you have things. First of all, you can make sure that you legally regulate the drugs that people want. And secondly, if you're not going to do that, you can have drug checking facilities where people can test their substances to make sure they don't have impurities or potential poisons that actually kill your loved ones. But addiction is related to people having problems in general. So make sure that people are psychologically healthy, make sure your society is healthy, and then you decrease the likelihood of people experiencing addiction. But as a parent, you have to parent. Just like you parent about your kids playing video games too much and not accomplishing their school tasks, the same thing with something like drugs. Just like you worry about your kids not driving responsibly, the same thing with drugs. It's not anything, there are no magic secrets, just parent.
Thank you. Just parent. That's Dr. Carhart's message. Doc Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, lovely. Just parent nga. No? Again, let me just mention my son. I actually have 5 children, so I'm speaking with authority as a parent. No? Uh, we went to Amsterdam 3 years ago, no? So you can imagine what it was like for him. No? I did not try to hide. We went to the center of the city where you could buy cannabis products, no, all the way up to ice cream. No? And he was begging to go into the shops. I said, but you cannot go in. You see, when it's legalized, but you have a whole system of controls. No, I mean, he said, I can't wait till I'm 18. I said, by the time you're 18, you're going to be so bored with all of these kinds of things because he is into adventure. No, and I tell you, he was 6 when he wanted to do zip lining, and I had to do that even with my fear of heights. But there are many, many ways of getting a high, no? And if we provide them with a life that is exciting, no? uh, the psychoactive should be part of it. No? Let me just mention too, psychoactive should be part of it. No? But I'm steering clear of things. What will I steer clear of? You know what I will steer clear of, no? Uh, Shabu, I will tell you, he was able to pick that up. That's how driving it underground has actually made it so simpler to get it, no? And he came home one day, he was stoned on it, no? He was out of it for 3 days, and I just kept quiet. And after the 3 days, he comes to me and he says, "Can we talk about it?" I said, "Yeah." "Are you going to repeat it?" He said, "No way." No? What a way to learn, though. That's where we are today. No? But forbidding any discussion, keeping them sequestered at home is not going to be the solution. We have to parent.
Have to parent. All right. Thank you so much, both. We have time for maybe last two questions, but no worries. We will be taking note of all the questions that we have on the Q&A tab. Thank you so much to everyone who's been asking. It's really great to see all the interactions happen so far. So this one is coming from somebody who is in the government. So game changer realization from the talk this morning. Um, and there's a lot of deconstructing that needs to happen in terms of, and it's not a simple task from a government perspective. Her question is, where do we start and how?
Since it's the government, how about we start by stop arresting people for using drugs? That'll be a great start. Then that way you won't be separating families. You won't be disrupting people's lives. That would be a great start. A second start, second sort of place is how about we try and work on getting to the bottom of people's issues? If people are unemployed, underemployed, how about we try and create jobs? Now we are in this new reality with the pandemic and so forth. So we want to make sure that airports and public spaces are clean. How about we hire a massive workforce to make sure that they have jobs and they're taken care of? Those will be great starts. Stop arresting people, give people jobs. Man, you will see your society improve.
Agreed again there. No? We do that. We handle the big context, the big picture. No? But today's summit, I hope will lead to more summits of this type. We need to talk with each other. I'm very happy that we have different sectors here. Uh, I am still, some of you may be wondering, what am I doing now that I'm not chancellor? I'm actually running a small school right now. No? And I want to start an alternative drug education program that is more positive in its treatment of psychoactives in general. No? Because it has to cover everything, that alcohol is itself a psychoactive. We would like to have more responsibility in drinking. No? And I don't want to be moralistic about it, but if we start there, then people will understand. My students are all from low-income families. They are all scholars. No? They don't pay any tuition. They live in poverty. No? And we intend to address the issues there as well. And then let's see what will happen. But I hope that I can work with NoBox. Well, we are already working together with community-based programs. But maybe it's time to get more radical and propose a new type of drug education that steers away from empty moralism. No? Na kasalanan nito, get high on God. No? Those slogans don't work. I'm sorry. No?
Yeah, just one more thing, because somebody would be angry with me if I didn't say, oh, and we have to stop killing people for using drugs. That's
Thank you. Thank you so much for both of your responses. We hope that it inspires our government, to start their responses as well. For last question for our session today, we have one here. A common argument is that communities are better off without illegal drugs. People can better put the resources to better things. What is the better view here?
It's always not in my backyard. You see, that's the reasoning there, that it's not going to be in my backyard. And that's an illusion. The drugs will always be in your backyard. And the more you suppress the information, the more you arrest people, you're not going to drive it away. It's just so amazing during the lockdown about what people would do to get drugs. They were using Grab. We know that. They were using our gigs for delivering drugs. And because everything is so clandestine, we're not able to handle it rationally. We do not talk about it anymore. And we want to deceive ourselves into believing that we can actually be clean of drugs. That is not going to happen, I can assure you. As a historian, I have looked at it. We've been trying for years and years, and we keep repeating the same old mistakes. One funny story here. One of the U.S. Governor Generals, when he came to visit the Philippines in 1913, he was going to boast about 5 years of anti-opium efforts. He wanted to boast about the U.S. success there. And you know what happened? There were 6 suitcases in the ship that he was coming in, and they were filled with opium. People realized that maybe the suitcases were not going to be inspected because it was the powerful Harrison who was having it. And it just shows you, it keeps happening over and over again. I'm also thinking, naawa ako sa PIDEA, naawa ako sa DDB. Enough of all of this, because you're killing each other as well. It has become such a dirty war in here. No one is spared. We have to stop this nonsense.
Well, I think Doc Mike said it best. We have to stop this nonsense. And I just want to remind people too, particularly those people who might be on an Apple or Mac computer, like Steve Jobs, one of his favorite activities was using psychoactive substances. And without him, you might not have your computer on right now listening to me. So it's not the drugs, people. And so let's just, I don't want to screw up Doc Mike's beautiful words. Let's knock off this nonsense. Let's stop the nonsense.
The deadly nonsense.
Thank you so much both for being here with us today. We're really honored to have you during the summit. Thank you all for joining us. We have 260 people here. Amazing. It's just like we're in one big auditorium together. So thanks again.